How's it going? It's Snail again, and today we're discussing who I think is the worst killer in Dead by Daylight yet. A killer so devoid of personality and flair, they make the Knight, who is literally a Dark Souls NPC, look fun and exciting by comparison. I am of course talking about the Skull Merchant, the new killer for Chapter 27, Tools of Torment. But before we get into it, make sure you hit the sub button, ring-a-ding the bell, and hit the like button if you want to keep seeing Dead by Daylight content like this. Without further ado, let's ride. I want to make it clear that this video isn't to bash people who like the Skull Merchant. If you like her, I'm happy for you. Many people enjoy the way she plays, her aesthetic, and her lore. I, however, am not one of those people. So this video is going to highlight what I dislike about her, as well as mirror some of the complaints the community has about her. To this end, it's really important that I outline the context of her reveal so you can get a better understanding of why people are upset about her. So, Chapter 27 was teased by behavior a few days ago, and people were letting their imaginations absolutely run wild with it. People were baiting on Twitter about Terminator coming to Dead by Daylight. People were talking about it possibly being Springtrap. There was just all sorts of speculation about a possible sci-fi themed killer coming. People were finally excited that, yeah, maybe we're getting a cyborg or an animatronic killer. Even the logo used in the teaser trailer was something that got people's hopes up. I mean, look at this thing. It's pretty similar to both the Skynet logo as well as the logo from Five Nights at Freddy's. However, those hopes were all quickly dashed once behavior accidentally leaked their own chapter. Big whoops, guys. Anyway, we learned early on that the survivors are named Thalita Lyra and Renato Lyra, and our killer is the Skull Merchant. Really cool sounding name, right? Kind of evokes an image of a mysterious salesman who collects skulls. Maybe he's a traveling killer or something. You know, something like a Jack the Ripper if he was a cool cyborg, or like the Merchant from Resident Evil 4 if he was less cool.
Got something that might interest you.
Either way, something that definitely makes use of technology to augment their body. This confusion would set the tone for the killer moving forward, because oh boy, there's a lot of it. So enter the PTB that started earlier this week. People finally get a chance to try out the new characters, new perks, test new builds, and all that. Everything seems fine, but people are pointing out that the sci-fi cyborg killer isn't very, well, cyborgish. For one, she's human, 100% all the way through. All that crazy metal stuff she's wearing, yeah, all that's just for decoration. It serves no actual purpose since her powers are only concerned with the drones that she's carrying and the weird 80s action movie GPS in her hand. Instantly, one of the biggest criticisms people had of her was her design. She struck something between a Kris Jenner wearing a bedazzled gas mask and Halle Berry as Catwoman. Another thing people noticed about her is that she seems eerily similar to an 80s action movie killer, specifically the Predator. From the massive claw on her hand to surveillance capabilities, down to the mask design, which is purely aesthetic and isn't even fixed to her head apparently, her Mori is almost reminiscent of a scene from the Predator movie titled Prey, where the Predator pretty much does exactly what her Mori does. Not that that's a smoking gun or anything, considering it's also identical to Freddy's Mori, except it's not nearly as cool. I mean, just look at these side by side and tell me which one is cooler. I'll give you a hint. It's the one with way more blood, way more gore, and is just way more exciting to watch. Like, Freddy's Mori in comparison is really one that you look at and you're not mad that you got by it. You kind of just accept it and enjoy it. Hey, it's Editing Snail here. I'm just letting you guys know if you want to know more about the connection between Predator and Skull Merchant, it's a good idea to go ahead and check out this video by Polyester. He makes some really good points, and I think if you're interested in this, this is probably the video that you want to watch. Back to the video. Okay, fine, her design isn't really great, but what about her ability? Well, her ability isn't so great either. It's essentially Trapper, but with a much larger area of effect and without the whole trapping bit. Instead, her power is to put up surveillance drones to watch for survivors. Enough time spent in the active zone of a drone means survivors suffer from the exposed status effect. You can disable these drones as a survivor, but you get stuck with a tracking device called a claw trap if you do. This claw trap cannot be removed until a certain period of time. What's more is that this ability is best used to make generators players essentially inaccessible. Because if you want to disable the drone, you're going to have to go ahead, do it, you disable it, you get a claw trap. Now the killer knows where you are. Now we just had emergency changes made to help stop the 3-gen meta. But what's insane is that 3-genning survivors is literally how this killer was built to play. And the only way to counter her ability is to take one for the team. And I know what you guys are saying. Well, I mean, you could probably build this killer some other way, right? Yeah, that is true, except that most people won't do that if they're actually trying to grind her out to get into the Eerie ranks. 3-genning is just absolutely the best and most effective strategy with her, and that's just how it is. While the punishment for interacting with her drones isn't so bad for highly organized Swift players, it is a horrible pain when solo queuing. The big difference made here is that Swifts can coordinate their efforts efficiently, have one member take the drone down, and thus also take the chase, while the other survivors work together on the generator. This, of course, is all made possible with voice chat. You know, something that solo queue players don't have access to. Because for some reason, Dead by Daylight does everything it can to justify not having voice chat in 2023. Oh, what's that? Horrible balancing problems between Swifts and solo queue? Nah, dude, we don't need voice chat. We just need to put up these status icons. They'll be fine. Of the 5 games that I played with her in matchmaking, 4 of those games were over 20 minutes long, with an absurd amount of time stuck at 1 or 2 generators. Her ability makes for horribly drawn out games that ultimately just come down to a battle of attrition and how fast you can die on hook. It's not an amazing time. Okay, so she's miserable to play against, but what about playing as her? Granted, while you have the benefit of not having to be a survivor in a Skull Merchant lobby, you have the distinct displeasure of playing as the Skull Merchant, which isn't much better. Skull Merchant's ability is incredibly boring. Fine, the same can be said about Trapper or maybe even the Knight, but her ability is even more so boring than the Knight's or Trapper's ability. The things you wish it did, it doesn't do, and the things it tries to do are done so much better by other killers, perks, niche builds, etc. And just in case you wanted some examples of killers that do her job better, here's some examples. Michael Myers' Scratched Mirror does information seeking way better. Bubba does camping better. Trapper has a better area control ability because you don't have to chase survivors when they trigger your trap. Exposed builds are pretty much available for all killers, and pretty much any killer makes better use of the mechanic. In fact, anything she does, Michael just does better. So therefore, Michael is just a better killer. Please buff Michael. She has no chase power, so your only hope with her ability is to block key looping areas and generators. Both of these things, which again, against competent survivors, just make for incredibly drawn out games. Now that we've covered her gameplay, let's look at something else I've noticed. Remember when I said that the confusion about her design and players' expectations would set the tone for her moving forward? Yeah, I wasn't lying. Her perks, while not being terrible on their own, are probably finding their way into a build somewhere. They all want to do very different things though. Both Thwack and Game of Foot want her to break shit, but they both benefit in different ways from breaking shit. And Leverage doesn't want anything to do with any of that. Instead, Leverage wants you to hook survivors and gain tokens for every hook, with every token giving a 5% debuff to survivor healing speed. Like I said, it's fine, but it's not necessarily synergistic. Overall, I think the Skull Merchant is a major flop in both game design and character design. In the context of current year Dead by Daylight, a power that is not only super boring to use, but even worse to play against is a horrible thing. At the very least, the good things that come from this addition to the roster will be more perks for builds on other, less boring killers, like Michael Myers. Anyway, if you agree with me, make sure you give this video a thumbs up, stay subscribed if you want to be up to date with all things Dead by Daylight, and comment down below if you think I missed anything or if you're an angry Skull Merchant stan who wants to take it out on me in the comments. Until next time, I'm Snail, take care, brush your hair, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.